This is Libby Lovell on Media Students Radio. As media students, we all know just how important audience feedback is. So in the studio with me today, I have the producer of the fantastic new short film Searching to talk about how audience feedback helped them with their film. Hello Katie, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
First thing I'd like to ask is, why did you conduct your audience research?
There are many reasons why we conducted our research. It's key in order to establish a connection with our audience and to ensure that their needs are met and catered to according to our genre. Audience research is important to establish whether our film stirred the right emotions that we were going for, whether people expected our twist ending, and most importantly, the likeability factor of our film. One of the most important things we wanted to establish was whether our audience trusted our main character. This was important because for the whole film to work and conjure up the right emotions, the audience has to trust our character. We completed 2 types of audience feedback. Originally, we produced a short animatic storyboard, complete with sound and audio, to try and reproduce how our film would come across once it was made. We screened this to potential audiences and asked them to fill out a questionnaire afterwards. The final piece of audience feedback we conducted was a questionnaire, and we asked potential audiences to fill out after our rough cut. Both of these enabled us to see if people could understand the concept of our film, as the idea itself is quite confusing. This was extremely helpful to us as we were able to make the changes to our film so the concept was understandable to our audiences.
You talked about 2 types of audience feedback you conducted there. What sort of questions did you ask on these questionnaires?
There was a big focus on the audience suggestion on both our questionnaires. We wanted to know what our audience wanted and how they thought we could improve. One of the main questions we asked was, did you trust our character? And as it happened, most people did happen to respond with the fact they trusted our character, which was very helpful in the continual planning of the film. We also asked our audience what they liked and didn't like about the film and why. This allowed us to see what to include more of and what we needed to change or remove. This enabled us to cater to our audience's needs and attract them to watch the final product. We also included a ranking system question so that we could see how our audience ranked our acting, music, parts of the film and mystery. We received high rankings for most of the categories, and finally we asked our audience how we could improve, and we used these suggestions to further improve and change our film.
So what changes did you make to Searching after audience feedback?
We received some interesting feedback when our audiences asked us to extend our final scene. This is quite an unusual request, so of course we had to comply with what they asked. This helped us to further capture the insanity of the main character, which is something our audience enjoyed and felt helped the film. In fact, originally, the final 4th scene I was just talking about wasn't even included. This scene was added after the screening of our animatic, as we felt that something was missing. We made most of our changes after our rough cut screening, and most of our audiences couldn't understand why there was a conflict between our 2 characters, as John was originally a politician, so we changed his character to Robert's psychiatrist so the audiences knew how these 2 men knew each other and that they had a history together. Then we added a radio report to go over the montage to explain the conflict so our audiences understood why it happened and why our main character is so wanted by the police. This also helped us to create an air of mystery and leave our audience thinking. Other comments included people asking us to improve the voice acting as it sounded as though it was just being read out, and people asked us to touch upon the editing. So we re-recorded all of our voiceovers in order to get the correct sound levels and add more emotion into our voices to make the story more believable. We also corrected some editing in order for the film to flow smoothly.
So was there any feedback that you ignored?
Being truthful, we did ignore some feedback. Many people suggested we refilm the murder scene as it looked staged, however we believed this helped add to the mystery and the tension, and most of the action in the film was spontaneous and would be hard to capture exactly the same if we filmed again. Timing was also an issue with this suggestion too.
It sounds like audience feedback was very helpful for your production.
Indeed it was.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you ever so much for joining me in the studio, Katie. It was interesting to hear about your audience research.